Is there a strategy that'll help you grow your company faster? CEO Sales Strategies is an investigative business podcast for entrepreneurial people who never stop asking questions. Highly acclaimed sales revenue growth expert Doug C. Brown interviews CEOs, business owners, and professionals who serve them to uncover and share actionable tips and methods behind their bulletproof sales strategies. Topics covered on the show include their failures, struggles, secrets, and processes that help them succeed in selling millions to billions of dollars of their products and services, all with the sole aim of helping you grow your business. If you are eager to know the most effective sales secrets from the A players of the game, then the CEO Sales Strategies podcast is certainly the place to be.
Hey everyone, this is Doug C. Brown with the CEO Sales Strategies podcast, bringing you another great guest. His name is Mr. Ramzi Marjaba. And it took me a long time to actually learn how to say that name. He's a super smart guy. He runs a company that is called WeTheSalesEngineers.com. We're going to talk all about sales engineers and sales solution consultants and sales specialists using technical people, even if you have a non-technical business today. And how do we work with the methodically minded as well? Right? Because a lot of sales engineers are super methodically minded because they think process. And most of them by nature, not all, are introverts, right? So how do we work with those people? And why do you need one of these people? And when I say need, it's a must, really, when you come down to it. Every company, no matter what you're selling, there will be people who are going to ask technical questions. And I can tell you, business after business I've been in, sales role after sales role, always comes down to the same thing. And you could say, well, hey, I own a music store. What's so technical about that? Well, guess what? There will be people who will come in and want to know why this particular density of this particular wood makes this guitar sound this way, or this piano. You know, if you're selling a $100,000 piano, people will come and they will ask questions that are in technical nature as well. They'll do this in auto dealerships. I gave an example of that in the podcast with Ramzi. They'll do this in all aspects, including technology businesses, which is where most people think sales engineers belong, right? Oh, I got a software company, I got this company, I got that type of company. So it's all technically oriented. So I need a sales engineer or a solutions consultant. Every company should have one of these. It doesn't matter whether you're selling training services or it does not matter. Whatever it is, it is. And the bottom line is, I recommend that you look at this in a different light. So Ramzi and I are going to cover a lot. It takes us a little while to get going into this episode. And we get rolling, and he and I have known each other for a while, so we do joke back and forth. It's a great episode. So without further ado, let's go talk to Ramzi. Ramzi, welcome to the CEO Sales Strategies podcast. I'm really grateful you're here.
Thank you for having me, Doug. I'm happy to be here.
So for all of you listening, we're probably going to be cracking up through this whole thing. Ramzi and I, every time we get together, we just laugh and we can't help it.
Yeah, no pressure. Now you're setting the bar too high.
So we're talking today about sales engineers and why your company should have one, even if you think you shouldn't have a sales engineer, and why we should have a technical person basically to speak to our clients, whether we have a technical business or a semi-technical business or kind of like a plain vanilla business. I'm going to turn it over to you because, I'll ask you the question, why should we have a sales engineer?
Well, I am biased. I think everyone should have a sales engineer for any reason. But mainly, the big thing I see is if there's a salesperson working with the customer, and every time they work with a customer, they say, all right, I need to get a technical person on the call. That technical person should be a sales engineer. There's a bunch of different skill sets required from engineers or technical folks and then communicate with the customers. I worked in engineering for a long time, and I didn't feel like I needed to explain stuff to the customers. It's just, this is the way it is. Understand it or don't understand it, it's on you. But when you become a sales engineer, now you understand, like, oh, you're in the business of selling. You're in the business of solving a business problem through technology. So it's in your best interest to actually take the time and explain things to customers in ways that they understand. And that could be very technical, or it could be more very businessy. And that's a new word that I just came up with, I guess. So
we'll trademark that by the end of this podcast.
Yeah, we the businessy engineers. That's I'm going to change the name of my podcast. So yeah, that's the main reason I see where people should have sales engineers who are technical and can communicate with customers.
So I can imagine a lot of people listening here going, well, all right, that sounds cool if you're a technical company, but I'm not a technical company. We sell, I don't know, office supplies. We sell, cars, medical equipment, something like that, right? I mean, they're thinking, oh, I just deal with the doctor.
Yeah.
So let's step back and say, okay, what really is a sales engineer? I mean, a sales engineer, because when we throw the word engineer onto it, a lot of people think technical right out of the gate, right?
Yeah.
But there's a lot of technical in everything. So really, to me, a sales engineer is a highly standalone and support mechanism for the sales channel to be able to describe all the stuff that salespeople can't really when it comes down to it.
Yeah. I mean, so again, it depends. There's no one size fits all. Some companies should not have sales engineers. If you're selling medical equipment and your salespeople are very technical and they can get into the weeds of the product, then maybe sales engineering is not the right thing, or maybe that salesperson is also a sales engineer. It's a combination role. I'm currently in a combo role where I'm a salesperson and a sales engineer for a techie company. That being said, the whole role of sales engineers is, again, solving a business problem through technology, being able to take something technical and show the value in a business sense to the customers. If your salespeople can do it, then you don't need sales engineers. As soon as you get a little bit more technical, where you have to do demonstrations, where you have to do proof of concepts, stuff like that, and you're wasting your salesperson's time from being outside, going, meeting customers, bringing in more leads, that's where a sales engineer can come in.
So let's take, I have a client that's a marketing company, for example, right? Yeah. They do a lot of digital online marketing, and their sales team can speak on the front end to a certain degree.
Yeah.
But then when it starts getting into questions about heavy marketing concepts and heavy marketing technology, whether it's software or it's, how do I use Facebook, or how do I use, LinkedIn or whatever, that's when another level, a sales engineer, if you will, because they wouldn't call it a sales engineer, they call it a marketing expert, basically, right? But it's really more of a sales engineer.
Right now, they might be called solution consultants. There's a million titles for sales engineers. I actually just had a video where I'll talk about the different titles for sales engineers. Solution consultant could be one of them, where you're consulting with customers, and it's a little bit more techy, because let's take that marketing firm, for example. They may have to integrate with other platforms. Like you have marketing, you have HubSpot, you have Salesforce. I'm sure people are familiar with those two. They might need to integrate together. How do you integrate that? Well, ask the solution consultant or sales engineer, whoever you want to ask. As soon as it's out of the depth of the salesperson, and you need to bring someone in who knows the technical part, they also need to be able to communicate that to the customer. Because we brought in people who are very technical in whatever sense, from like technology, or like technical in marketing, or technical in whatever industry. They need to be able to communicate effectively with the customer. And that's where I see a lot of disparity, where salespeople are great at communicating, but they don't know the technology. And then you bring in someone who's very technical, but doesn't know how to communicate. Who's going to fill in that gap in the middle?
Right.
That's where solution consultants, sales engineers, solution engineers, whatever you want to call them, pre-sales, that's where they come in.
So this is interesting to me, because I just bought a new vehicle, right?
Yep.
And I don't know why I bought another truck, but I wanted a truck, right?
Okay.
And so I go to buy this truck, and firstly, the sticker shock on trucks today are just like insane. Like, I'm like, seriously, $110,000 for a truck? Like, what is this? Is this a magic flying carpet truck? I mean, like, so, but my point being is, I go in there and I want to, I'm buying a boat, right? Because I want to tow my boat. And so I go in and I ask, what's the towing capacity of this particular vehicle? And the salesperson goes, I have no clue. And then I asked, well, why is a Hemi engine different from a regular 8-cylinder engine, right? And again, salesperson goes, I don't know. And so then I asked something about the interior, wiring, if it could be, wired for this type of sound. And they're like, I don't know what you're talking about, right? So my level of trust is dropping precipitously as we are going along. I'm like, why would I spend this kind of money on a vehicle if I don't have my answers? Now, this is where I hear a solutions consultant or sales engineer, or whatever we want to call them, could step in and go, hey, you know what? The towing weight is 26,000, pounds. Is, right? Is that what we're talking about?
I mean, we're talking about a very bad salesperson in your situation, but to solve that, if the salesperson is so overwhelmed that they don't have time to actually look at that information, a sales engineer can come in. The issue that I would see with car dealerships is that now you're going to need to pay another sales engineer a good sum of money to do the salesperson's job. But so there are combo positions in mechanical, and like if someone's selling a wind turbine, generally speaking, they're called sales engineers, but they do the sales part and the engineering part because they know they're usually mechanical engineers who understand it very well. So they're doing everything from finding the lead. Let's talk about the role of the sales engineer. The sales process is usually you get a lead, you do the qualification, you do a discovery, then you start selling, right? And then you close the deal, and the cycle repeats. Generally speaking, sales engineers come in at the discovery call, right? And they might lead the selling part, because if we're talking about, depending on how complicated the technology, there could be a demonstration, which in your case, if you're buying a car, that's basically taking it for a test drive. Right? There could be a proof of concept, which means, again, in the car situation, you're keeping the car for a week and driving it around, seeing if it works for you. But if it's more techie, you need the sales engineer there to answer those questions, like how much does it tow? So that if you try to tow a building, the sales engineer will tell you, whoa, calm down. It can tow a boat, right? And the sales engineer's role in all this is help with the negotiation. We're building the value of the product. Like, hey, you want to tow the boat. It's towing a bigger boat than what you have today. So you can even upgrade at some point, right? You're showing the future value of the product. It's low on gas, which trucks are never low on gas. But that's what we're doing as sales engineers. It could be a different person if it's too techy, or it could be the same person going through all of these motions of the sales cycle. Does it make sense?
That makes total sense. And thank you. And by the way, now I do want to tow a house, just so you know.
I went for a building. I don't know why you're getting small.
I have a few people in my past that I want to take their house and just pull it off to a foundation.
Yeah, I don't want to know about your future.
I'm kidding, just in case anybody's house slides off their foundation, they'll be coming after me.
If someone sees a house missing tomorrow, you know where it went.
We're speaking with Mr. Ramzi Marjaba.
Yeah.
And has a company called We the Sales Engineers. They can be found at wethesalesengineers.com. I wanted to bring forth this subject so much because a lot of people don't, like, I agree with you in that case, the salesperson's weak or inadequate in that capacity, right? Yeah. But a lot of salespeople never think that they should be technical. They think their job is, I bring the thing, I bring the game, I bring the client to the thing, and then I don't need to know all the technical stuff. I just need to bring it there. And in some capacities, that works pretty well in a model. Yeah. So the reason I'm bringing this up, Ramzi, is because a lot of people saying, all right, well, I just turn my people into technical people. But what I've learned working with sales engineers is they have a specialty that most salespeople can never get there. They just don't have the mind. They don't have the methodical breakdown, engineering mind. Most salespeople are, gift of the gab, if you will. And sales engineers, the ones I've worked with, usually are very fun but reserved type personalities, and they're very methodical, and they're very pragmatic in their approach, right? They're not the party animal that a salesperson necessarily can be. Not that say they don't like to party, but I'm just saying that they're not that type of person. Usually, the ones I've worked with.
Yeah.
Have you worked with any that are just like got so much of an outgoing personality that they can replace the salesperson's role, for example, like yourself?
Well, I'm an introvert. I consider myself an introvert. I would say there's a combination of both. I mean, it's a scale, right? From being extrovert to an introvert, and life of the party to the guy standing in the corner, which is, by the way, me. And they don't want to talk to people. The thing about I think they work differently. I mean, and when you look at a salesperson, they're making calls all the time. And you're going to have to balance the fact that the more technical the salesperson is, the less dependent on technical people they are, which means they can close the sales cycle faster because they're answering most of the questions there and then. But now you're balancing being out there and trying to find new leads too. So which one is more important for you? Sales engineers, some of them are the life of the party. But if you put a life of a party sales engineer with a life of a party salesperson, then you're never going to sell anything. You need balance between the two, because someone has to I'm an introvert. I work better with an extroverted salesperson because they pull me out and I rein them in.
Right.
But if they're both all over the place, who's taking care of the customer? You're doing what you want. You're not focused on your customer and what they need. Right. So a balance. If there are two introverted SEs, then no one's taking a customer out to lunch ever. Right. So to introverted salesperson, introverted SE, because I've seen both. I don't know if I'm answering your question. Am I on the right direction?
You really are, and you're actually bringing me down the path I wanted to go, which is everybody has a different level of sales ability and acumen. And what a lot of companies look at is the front end side of this, and they go, okay, if I can just get the front end fixed, they'll sell. Right. But there's a high percentage of people who are highly methodical, who a person who's not methodical doesn't know how to sell to. And that's where I found huge value in having solution consultants, sales engineers and all. Because I know even when I was selling telecommunication services, I would bring in big accounts and I could get them to the table. But if it got really technical, I needed Peter Weston. I needed, Ramzi Marjaba. I needed you guys because I was not able to talk the IT side of the game or the engineering side of the hospital, right? And bring all these together because I just didn't have that level of knowledge. And so I think too many companies, when they hear sales engineer, they go, I'm not that technical. I don't need that, or what's the point? It's an added salesperson, right? I would make a strong argument and almost fight it to the death that they're losing valuable sales in some capacity by not having that methodical minded person who has that technical expertise. And I don't even care if it's a vacuum cleaner store.
Right.
You know what I mean? Right. I remember I went in and I spent $1,200 on a vacuum one time, and I was shocked that I did it. But I walked in, and then the person greeted me, and she was very nice. And she said, "Oh, you looking for this? Oh, you got to talk to John." So John comes out and he starts demonstrating what the vacuum would do, and he's talking about the suction power and how it will do this and that and all these things. And I swear to you, Ramzi, in the middle of the whole thing, rudely, I took my credit card out. John's on the floor showing me everything, and I just threw my credit card at his feet.
Okay.
I didn't even know what the vacuum cost. He did such a great job making me feel safe using technology and using technical abilities that I was like, I'll take it. Right. And so he goes, "Sir, do you want to know the price?" I'm like, "Okay, what is it?" He goes, "It's $1,200. I'm like, "I'll still take it." Right. That type of thing. And this
I would
is
have said, give me my credit card back.
Right. But this is back when an average vacuum, you would spend $200 on, tops. Right. So my point being to the audience is people like you are invaluable in every single sales scenario. And yes, you could train your sales team to do it, but when it starts to get to a point where the sales team doesn't have it, they need a guy like you. They need people like you, a gal like you, you know?
I want to bring up 2 points, or maybe more. We'll see. First off, the sales engineer, solution consultant, these terms initially bring credibility. Salespeople have a bad rep, whether it's earned or not. When you're talking to someone in sales, the customer knows that this person is trying to take my money, especially if it's someone new that you don't know. When you bring in a sales engineer, a technical resource, whatever you want to call them, now you shifted the conversation from money to solving problems. So that's one aspect that immediately helps the sales team. I mean, the sales engineer is still trying to sell, but we're more interested in solving problems, and the selling comes second to us. So that usually helps. Second of all, the second point I want to bring up, and you mentioned, is speaking someone's language. I mean, that person who was selling the vacuum was speaking your language, and you were sold right away. And when we're talking about companies, there are multiple people making decisions. It could be the end user who's going to use the product, the software, whatever it is that you're selling on a daily basis, that have input towards if they should buy it or not, if they're going to use it. Then there's the manager, there's the director, and each of them have their own language. And the salesperson can very well take care of directors and like the higher ups, the business people who are not involved in the tech. The sales engineer can close the techie people and help them understand the value of the product so that they can push upwards as well. So you're not having a top-down approach anymore. Now you're having like a two-pronged approach. That sounds like a marketing term, but you're flanking from both sides so that you can help the customer make a decision that's best for them.
Yeah, I think what you're speaking about is you're having a peer approach to the sales process at that point.
Yeah.
And so people who are technically minded speaking to other technically minded people, it's like, you get me, you understand me. And that reduces their fear, and they are high influencers in a complex sale.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what somebody's doing, whether they're bringing in a new marketing initiative, whether they're bringing in a new technical issue. I mean, obviously that hits them, but just decisions being made in a company all fall back a lot of times on the technical people. Yeah. Hey, we're gonna go out and get a whole new cell phone plan, right? And the sales engineers and the tech people in the back end are going, no, wait a minute, right?
I mean, I think everybody would know Salesforce, right?
Yeah,
most people.
Yeah, most people should.
So the sales manager, the VP of sales, decides that, all right, we're gonna go with Salesforce, and now the individuals are gonna have to use it. And the individuals are going to love it or complain about it.
Yeah.
Right. And if they complain about it, and where everybody's complaining all the way up to the VP of sales, then the VP of sales might start thinking twice about renewing the subscription or maybe looking at a different solution.
Without question. I've seen this happen over and over again.
So the sales engineer's role in that case is to talk to the salespeople. Like, hey, what problems are you having?
Yeah.
I want a solution. I want to build a solution that the VP would like. Sure. But I want you to be able to use it as well. So help me help you, right? But the salesperson wouldn't go down to the weeds and talk. Like the seller of Salesforce wouldn't go down to the weeds and talk to their customers' salespeople potentially, from what I've seen. Because I've had like companies say, "Hey, Ramzi, congratulations, you're using Salesforce tomorrow." All right,
right.
What is that? I'll figure it out, right? Okay.
Yeah. And I remember when I worked for that telecommunications company, they were like, we're bringing in, I think it was Oracle or one of the, a SaaS platform. And they're like, all you salespeople now have to put all your conversations in this, all that, all this, all that. And in my head, I'm going, it's going to cost me $25,000 in commissions. I'm not doing this crap. Right? And so if I had somebody from like yourself come from a technical point of view and say, look, this is how it's going to make you more productive, and this is how easy it is to use, then I wouldn't have pushed back.
That's how it's going to make you, the individual, money, and in return make the company money.
Right. Exactly.
If the VP of sales didn't make this decision to lose money, and if you lose money, they're losing money. So they may have the vision, but it wasn't trickled down to you.
Correct. And that's what I think the invaluable part of what you do as a solutions consultant, sales engineer, whatever we want to term that as. Because I mean, people go through this every single, like if we think of a real estate transaction, right?
Yeah.
Or any person who's selling, a lot of times you said it perfectly. The person who is being buying knows they're trying to take the money out of their account and stick it in the company that they represent.
Yeah.
So if you take a real estate agent, for example, the real estate agent is going to come show you homes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and say, well, I think this, I think that. You might love that person and really get along well with them. But then you ask for something called an inspection on the home, right? Now, we ask for an inspection because we want a solutions consultant to come in there and fill us in on everything that's going on with the home and explain it to us so that we can now make a best decision for our own value, really, when it comes down to it. But people don't think about like that person as a sales engineer or a technical solutions consultant. They think of them as an ally and as a friend, right? So
exactly. And you're still paying them money though. as a customer, you're still paying more for them.
Right.
So
but we do it for
value.
Exactly. And we do it for peace of mind, right? Because we want to know, my gosh, because we know when we're buying a home, like, what's the roof like? We don't know, right? What's the underlayment of the roof like? We don't know, right? So we bring somebody technical in to resolve that for us. So it blows my mind that, Ramzi, that many companies don't think like this and they're burning sales out. They're just flushing them out the window. You know, smoke's just pouring out. It's like all their hard-earned prospecting dollars are just flying out the window by not doing this.
Yeah. And the thing about sales engineers also is they have experience combining multiple solutions together. Right. So if a salesperson who's not experienced in tech was asked a question and the answer is like, the obvious answer is no, a sales engineer can come in and say, all right, maybe we can do exactly that. But how about we combine this with that, with this, get it together. Now you have a bigger solution that solves more of your problems and we get paid more money.
And the client's happy and the company's happy. And now when you go ask for a referral as a salesperson, then they go, wow, you know what? Ramzi came up with this amazing idea and they dote, if you will, upon you, right? And so it makes the expansion of the sale and regeneration of a new sale much easier when we're doing that. I want to go back to one thing you said, because salespeople are positioned a certain way. And I remember my good friend Andy Miller said to me one time when I was younger, he goes, Doug, two salespeople and a manager comes into the company to meet with people to sell to them. Them sitting on the other side of the table are thinking, oh, I got two liars and maybe one honest guy.
Yeah. Whether the perception is true or not, I mean, there are some bad salespeople out there. The majority that I've worked with have been great and don't think like they want to help the customer, especially if it's a repeat business.
Sure.
But the perception is there, and having someone technical who can speak the language of multiple levels in there and answer technical questions instead of saying, I don't know how many horsepowers it has or whatever the question may be. You're speeding up the sales cycle, right? Because you don't have to go back every time and get someone else. You're also, instead of trying to get someone technical to come and talk to you, who may not be able to communicate properly because they're not sales engineers, they're engineers and great at what they do. Now you're delaying the sales process more.
Yep.
And what else? Another question that I have is, what else could the salesperson be doing instead of trying to find all these answers to all these questions?
Yeah, and I would like to add one more point. When you come into the room, so two salespeople, a manager, and a solutions sales engineer comes in the room, we're now bringing a trusted advisor. And so there's a level of trust that you bring into that sale that no salesperson can actually bring without hard work over time. Because just because of who you are and how you in the level of expertise that you bring, people know they've got that side covered. And in a lot of cases, like I can tell you in telecommunications, for example, the number one reason people don't buy telecommunications is they're afraid that if they make this decision, that their company's going to get knocked out of service for a day or 2 days or whatever, and they're going to lose more on the back end. So when I used to bring the engineers in, they would talk about how to completely eliminate that possibility. And then all of a sudden the CEO's like, let's go.
Yeah. You're talking to an expert how to reduce risk.
Right.
And also sales engineers can loan credibility to their salespeople.
That's a good point. I didn't think about that one. Yeah.
If I like when I'm on a call, when I'm meeting one-on-one with a customer, I say nice things about my salesperson. Yeah, he always tries to take care of their customers, especially if it's true. If it's not true, I won't say anything.
Right.
But if it's true, I try to lend some of my credibility to them.
That's a really interesting point, because where you have that credibility, it's kind of like an MD or a senator or whatever, writing a testimonial note on behalf of Doug, right? And it's all of a sudden that Doug gets elevated just because of their status.
Yeah, the credibility by association.
Yeah. So I think that probably always works, as long as the salesperson roots for the same hockey team that you root for or whatever. Is that how it is?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen sales engineers and sales people work together, and they're an amazing team together. And you can tell when they walk into a room, these guys are going to take care of me, because they're in sync. They're not talking over each other. They're not bad mouthing each other, and they're both have the same goal of helping me, the customer. I've had sales engineers trying to rein in salespeople who are just flat out lying. I've had sit in rooms where my salesperson would say something, and I'll have to say, "Sorry, guys, I think what he meant was something completely different," right? Because I don't want to take away credibility, but I also want to tell the truth to the customer, so that the only thing that I have as a sales engineer is my credibility.
Right.
If I lose that, the whole sales team loses that.
Agreed.
So I still have to be honest. So if the salesperson and the sales engineer are on the same page, aiming for the same goal, it will work well. If they're pulling in different directions, then the customer will know, and they will not buy from that team unless they absolutely have to.
So we're speaking with Ramzi Marjaba.
It's getting better.
I'm getting better, man. Yeah. And you have a company called We the Sales Engineers. Tell people what you do, because I don't think people know, but I think it's a really cool concept.
Well, I appreciate that. So when I started this company, there weren't any resources for sales engineers. You can see a lot of resources for salespeople, a lot of resources for technical, but nothing in between for sales engineers. So I started it, and now I'm coaching sales and people who want to become sales engineers and sales engineers, how to upskill, be better partners for their salespeople, because it is in the end a partnership. And if the sales engineers do their job well, closing the deal is so much easier for the salesperson. If we do some of the skills that are lacking from technical people is the ability to do proper discovery, ask the proper questions, and then throughout the sales cycle, highlight based on the discovery and the pain points that the customer has, highlight the value of our solution. And if we can do that well, salespeople, all they have to do is ask for a PO, and they won't have to negotiate on price. So that's what I teach my clients, how to be better at sales engineering.
That's awesome. So if somebody wants to get a hold of you, how do they do that?
I'm on LinkedIn, Ramzi Marjaba, WeTheSalesEngineers.com. Ramzi at WeTheSalesEngineers.com. If you want to email me, I'm happy to help, happy to chat with anybody.
And that's Ramzi, for those of you who were wondering potentially how that's spelt. I will put all that into the show notes. Ramzi, I'd like to ask one last question, because I think people who are listening are going, okay, this makes sense. I'm getting it. I hope, I guess the question would be how do we work with a sales engineer? And let me preface it by saying this. I drove all my sales engineers completely insane, right? Because I would be the innovator. Now, I never lied, to my clients, but and most salespeople won't lie. But what salespeople will do is they'll kind of embellish the possibilities.
Yeah.
Right. To future pace it out. And then guys like you will come in and go, yeah, or yeah, but, right. And so how does one, okay, I've got a sales engineer in my company, or I want to I own a company, I want to bring a sales engineer. I don't want to disrupt my sales team. How do they like work together, if you will? Like, what's the best approach?
Well, like any partnership, it's open communication. If I feel you, Doug, you're going a little bit overboard, I'm going to tell you like, hey, you're going a little bit overboard here. And then I have to listen to your response because maybe you have a reason you're doing that. And if we can discuss openly without, like, while being partners, not subordinate or anything like that, I think that's the best way to actually move forward. Sales engineers need to take a lot of responsibility on their end as well, because sometimes we feel that sales engineers are subordinate to salespeople, which we're not. And if you, Doug, you put a 2-hour call on my calendar for 2 days from now to do demo of 15 different things, I need to be able to grab the phone and call you and ask you the simple question of what's this about? Because usually it's not as bad as we think. Maybe you set up 2 hours just in case we need it, but it could take 5 minutes. It's a discovery call. I said it's a demo, but we can do it more as a discovery call. And then if we want to show something, we can show something. Just open communication in the end. Just being on the same page, knowing that you both have the same goals of helping the customer, as long as that's your goal, and then closing that deal, making some money in the process. I think people would work together very well.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I'd like to add something to that, which is if you're a salesperson and you're using sales engineers, understand that their time and their value they bring is equal or even exceeding your time value and your ability, because they're very busy on the back end most of the time, handling multiple accounts. And the reason I'm bringing this up, Ramzi, is I learned this early on with the sales engineers that I worked with, where, people were doing exactly that internally. They're like, well, I'll schedule 2 hours and it could take 15 minutes, right? Because the salesperson is feeling so inadequate. And what I used to do is I just call them and I go, hey guys, I got this issue, right? And I know you're busy, but I don't want to mess with your schedule. How much time do you think this will be? You know what I mean? Yeah. And what I didn't know at the time, because I was just being naturally me, what I didn't know at the time is the sales engineering team talks right to one another. And they're like, Doug's a good guy to work with. And, and Pierre is not so fun. And Mary's great, but Margot's, she's, so I think it's important for the sales team to understand how a sales engineer actually works too. So take them out to lunch, go, start to understand what's in their world too, because I promise you, there's so much stress on the sales engineering side in many, many capacities that salespeople just don't get it, Ramzi. You know what I mean?
So the way I see it is salespeople work in 5-minute blocks. Right? Their minimum time block is 5 minutes. You can make a call in 5 minutes. And then you can add multiple, I'm not saying you're working 5 minutes at a time, but you can complete a task in 5 minutes. Well, some tasks could take 30 minutes, but you can call 5 people in 5 minutes each. Sales engineers, their minimum time block is half hour to an hour. Right? If there's a demo, we're spending an entire day preparing for that demo so that the next day we can kick ass and help the salesperson close the deal.
Right.
If there's a proof of concept, we're collecting all the information. It's just we work differently. And the one thing I teach my SEs to do is put it on their calendar. One big mistake SEs do is don't put the back-end stuff on their calendar. So when the salesperson looks at their calendar, they see, all right, it's all empty because they don't have customer meetings. It doesn't mean that they're not doing anything. So what ends up happening is the salespeople putting more calls on their calendar and sales engineers working nighttime to prepare for all those calls, which leads to burnouts, leads to resentment and all that stuff. So if you're a salesperson and you're working with SEs, I would highly recommend you tell them hey, if you have a demo that you need to work on, put it on your calendar that you have this 5-hour blocked to work on the demo. If you want to highlight a different color so I know, that's fine. But make it on your calendar. And if I see your calendar is fully blocked, I'll give you a call and see if you can move something for an important customer meeting. But if you can't, then I'll have to find another resource or we'll figure it out together. That's the big mistake SEs do is they don't take care of their calendar. If you look at salespeople's calendar, I've seen a lot of salespeople calendar. If they want to call a customer, they have it in their calendar.
Right.
If they want to work on a quote, they have it in their calendar. And I think that's a big difference in the way they work. If the calendar is empty, it doesn't mean that they're not doing anything. It just means that they didn't put it on their calendar.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. I've seen that as well. And I will tell salespeople one last thing, or people who are selling one last thing. If you have something you're not sure can be completed, don't sell it and then dump it on the sales engineer.
Yeah, we're going to say no.
Right.
Good sales engineers say no ahead of time.
I'm guilty of this, Ramzi, right? So when, I was the top rep in the company, and I went out and sold a product set we didn't have, but I knew we could technically do it. And with good reason, the sales engineering team came out with pitchforks and lanterns and torches.
Yeah, that happens.
But the thing is if I had called you ahead of time, Ramzi, a guy like yourself ahead of time, said, "Hey, I'm thinking of doing this," and you said, "Yeah, that's technically we can do it. We don't have a product set for it," and we talked about it ahead of time and we worked it out, that wouldn't upset the sales engineering team, because what I didn't realize I was doing was creating a whole boatload of procedure and process and work for these people. I was just out there selling something thinking, hey, this is what I'm supposed to do, right? So I would say everybody who's selling, whether you own the company or you even, working for the company, please take note that these folks work really hard and long hours behind the scenes as well.
Well, I appreciate that.
You're welcome. So Ramzi, thanks for being on the CEO Sales Strategies podcast. I really appreciate you being here. As always, I had fun. We didn't harass each other as much as I thought we were going to, which is kind of unusual.
My apologies. I'll work harder next time.
So thanks again for being here. Really appreciate it.
It is my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Okay. So what did you learn? I learned something, which was, you know what? Sales engineers, they plan their day differently than salespeople do. And, I never thought about that point because, we're so used to outselling if we're the owner of the company or, we're the CEO and we're in that position, we're still rainmaking. We just go out and do our thing, right? And we come back and, oh, hey, take care of this, solutions consultant, or take care of the sales engineer or whatever it might be. But what we don't think about is how the impact is upon them. And think about it in terms of if you have a company and you have an IT department, or if you ever worked with an IT department, everything gets dumped back on that IT department, whether it's wireless phones or, technical, internet or CRM, or, we're making a decision in operations and now that's going to change everything. IT actually gets it dumped back on them. That's kind of what happens to sales engineers if you utilize them in those capacities. But if you utilize them up front, just like if you use an IT company or IT department up front, they can bring a tremendous amount of value in the selling process as well. The very sales-oriented sales engineering mindset brings process, brings systems, brings clarity of communication to your sales process as well as your sales team. So if you've never thought about it, I would look at getting a technical person, and maybe you get them part-time, right? You reach out to Ramzi to have a conversation with them. Maybe you have somebody that's, kind of on call for something like this. I can tell you, if you're selling a complex sale, for sure, if you're in a multi-person sale and you don't have a technical resource talking to their technical resource, the probability of you closing that sale is diminished greatly. Because what will happen behind the scenes is that person is, if they're not the direct decision maker, are definitely an influencer in the sale. And so what happens is this, the front end's going, oh yeah, this is good. HR saying this is good. This is good. Operations saying, yeah, I can do this. But then you're going to hear this, guys, from a technical point of view, this is going to cost us an extra 3 months and $300,000 in implementation. Whoa. Let's back up the sale here. Now that sale could unravel and you wouldn't know, but if you have a technical liaison talking to that technical person within the company, they're communicating to resolve that issue long before it goes to the decision table. And that's what you want to bring. If you have in any capacity in your company, if you don't have people who are speaking the technical side of the business, there is a high percentage of people who are methodically minded. It's just human beings. And if you don't have that, you're going to lose the sale in many capacities. So if you like the subject matter, please let me know. If you love it, give it a 5-star review if you would. If you haven't subscribed, please do. We would love to have that happen for us. The more people we get, obviously, the more and beneficial the algorithms are for us, and more people we can help as we go along. Now, speaking of helping, if you have an episode you want to hear more about, reach out and let us know what that is at youmatter at ceosalesstrategies.com. That's YOUMATTER at ceosalesstrategies.com. Let us know what your idea is on the subject you want. We'll find the expert. We'll bring them to you. As well as, hey, maybe you want to be a guest on the CEO Sales Strategies podcast and get your reach out there and extended, and you have subject matter you think you can talk on, let us know what that is as well. And of course, if you have any desire in helping yourself, someone who works for you, or someone you know, or the company in general, to get to the top 1% of sales earners and get your company revenues into that position, reach out to me at doug@ceosalesstrategies.com. And if you just like to grow your revenues in your company and you want to optimize all that process, just reach out to me and let's have a conversation. Until next time, this is Doug C. Brown signing off with the CEO Sales Strategies podcast. Go out and sell something, sell a lot of it, sell it for profit. Help a lot of people, play win-win, make somebody's day better, make your day better, it makes the whole world better. Until next time, to your success.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the CEO Sales Strategies podcast. What is something that you learned that you could act on today? Don't forget to schedule it now, or it may never get forward momentum. If you find our content valuable, please leave a favorable review and let us know what you liked. Please also share this with others if the content will help them. For our show notes, other episodes, and more interesting content and resources, please visit ceosalesstrategiespodcast.com. See you soon, and to your continued success.